All right, guys, story time on this Tuesday or Monday evening. This story goes back about 25 years ago. I was working for another heating air company then, and I got a phone call about one of our company trucks was off in the ditch on this little back road. So I jumped in my old 74 Ford F-250 and struck out and drove from Spring Hill all the way to Nolensville. Got there, and sure enough, a little Ford Ranger in the ditch. And by the time I had got there, I had already contacted another buddy of mine who lived in the area, and he had got there about the same time I did, old Willoughby's. And so Willoughby's was in his little 81 Ford F-150, and had coil grit spurs on the back. And then I was in my 74 Ford F-250, and roads were rough. They were really rough. We shouldn't have been on them. And we got there, and we got old, his name was Greg. We got Greg out of the ditch in that little Ranger. Well, we was like, all right, let's go. So Greg took off in this little Ranger. We watched him. He didn't go. We could still see him in the distance, and he wiped out again, went to another ditch. And we were like, man, this dude can't drive. So I said, we'll go ahead and go there and pull him out. So I go and jump in my truck, and I go to leave. Well, I kind of off in the ditch a little bit, and I can't get out. Well, Willoughby hooks a chain to me, and he said, well, I'll pull you out, no big deal. So he tries to pull me out. Well, the more he pulls me, the more I go in this ditch, and it's a steep ditch. And I look, and this is 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and this ditch looks really, really deep. And I'm like, man, this ditch looks like it's never ending. And so he continues to snatch me. I'm telling him, snatch the shit out of me, just go. He keeps snatching. Well, I go off in this ditch. When it goes, it goes. And I'm in the driver's seat giving it hell, trying to go. And when it goes, it goes. And I remember this Ford F-250 just falling down to the left. And I thought it was going to flip. It just went. And when it went, it just fell, free-falled off in this ditch. And I remember hearing Willoughby's Ford truck. It was straight piped. And I remember hearing that exhaust. And when that old F-250 come to arrest, it come to arrest on the driver's side door. And I'm looking out the front windshield, and I remember seeing them taillights of that F-150 on the edge of that road. You could still hear Willoughby just giving it hell. And then you hear it stop. Everything stopped. And I remember Rush Mayfield, he jumped off that ditch and landed on the passenger side door of my F-250, and he snatched that door open. He's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. And so I climbed out of that old F-250. If that chain would have been 5 feet shorter, Willoughby would have been down there with me. This ditch was 30 feet deep, and my F-250's at the bottom of it now. And so we climb out of it, and we get up there to Willoughby, and we said, well, ain't nothing we could do about it tonight. So we just leave it. And so we get in the truck, and we all get in the truck, and we drive down the road and get Greg out of the ditch again. And then he goes about his way, and we go home. And so the next morning we wake up, and I call a local tow truck out there. And I think we actually had to wait a couple days because the roads were so rough. So that old F-250 sat at the bottom of that ditch for a couple of days. So finally, a couple of days of roads had actually cleared up a little bit. And we got this boy, old Sanford, down there. He had a Chevrolet 6500 series wrecker. And we told him where we was at. And he's like, well, I can get it out. So it's all right. And I told him, I said, man, this truck's in there deep. So he come out there, and he said, yeah, it's in there pretty deep. And so he told us, he's like, go down there, hook a chain to the front, hook a chain to the rear, and I'll just drag it out sideways. We said, okay. And so we went down in there, and we hooked the chain to the front and rear, hooked a cable to it, and we come back out of the ditch up there, and now we're looking down at this Ford truck, and it's 25, 30 feet off in this ravine. And there's like 3 or 4 of us. We got the road blocked. There's 3 or 4 of us up there watching, this truck, hoping it's going to come out. And this Chevy wrecker is turned like sideways in the road. We're blocking the road, and he's got this boom coming up high, and it's running down into the ditch to that old F-250. And we're all kind of, our attention is on the F-250. Nobody's really looking at the wrecker, and we don't see this truck coming out, and he's got this wrecker just wound up, and we all kind of at the same time turn around and look at the wrecker, and the front tire of this wrecker is like 2 or 3 foot off the ground, and the wrecker driver was like, "Holy shit!" So he stops because he's got the wrecker scotched. So he stops. He lets the boom loose. The front tires go back down on the ground. And another record driver says, "I'm done." He's like, "I can't pull it out." So we're like, "Crap." So we go to unhook the cable. He leaves. Well, I go home, tell Dad, and I was like, hey, it's gonna take a wrecker to get this. It's gonna take a wrecker to get this thing out. My dad's like, "Well, I'll call Romeo." So anybody in the wrecker business, they probably know Romeo. He used to work for Brentwood Towing. Oh, Romeo. Dad calls Romeo and says, "Hey, I got a truck in the ditch out here. It needs to be took out." And so Romeo says, "Meet me at Clovercroft Market out there." He said, "We'll get it out." So I'm telling my dad, I was like, "Man, this wrecker, it's in. I mean, this truck's in the ditch pretty doggone good." So Dad's like, "Romeo, get it out." So I'm riding with my dad out there, and he says he's gonna meet us at Clovercroft Market. If anybody remembers that market, it's there now, but not a store. We come off a hill, and I remember my dad saying, "If that wrecker don't get it out, nothing will." And I remember looking down and seeing a little Ford wrecker sitting there in front of that store. And I look at my dad and I go, "Hell, the wrecker that tried to pull it out the other day was bigger than that, and he couldn't pull it out." And my dad looked at me, and he looked back down, and we're driving down toward that store. And he looks at me and he goes, "You had a wrecker like that out here the other day and it didn't pull it out?" And I said, "Yeah." And my dad looks at me like I'm crazy. Well, I'm about blind, right? Well, as we're getting closer to the store, my eyes kind of focus, and I see that Ford 1-ton wrecker sitting there, and behind it was the tractor-trailer wrecker, taking up the whole front of the store, like one of the big tractor-trailer wreckers. And I'm like, I'm like, that wrecker. I was like, "Yeah, that will get it out," So my first thought is, "Oh my God, how much is this going to cost? Like, this is going to cost a fortune." So we pull up, and Romeo brought 2 wreckers. He brought that tractor-trailer wrecker, and he brought the little 1-ton wrecker. He said, "We can't get out with a small wrecker." He said, "We'll use the big wrecker." And I told Romeo, I said, "Romeo," "we already tried it with like a 6500 series wrecker, and it didn't budget." So Romeo's like, "All right, well," we went to leave, and Romeo said, where's the truck at?" And I told him where it's at. He's like, "Well, this wrecker won't fit through the 1-lane underpass." And I said, and there was a 1-lane underpass east and west. So he had to go all the way back to Franklin, go all the way to the Triune 4-way, all the way to Nolensville, and then come down Clovercroft to get to that truck, because his wrecker wouldn't fit through the 1-lane underpass. So now money sign is going off in my head. I'm like, "Oh my God, the money we're about to spend." Because I knew this tractor-trailer wrecker was not cheap. Just starting this son of a gun wasn't cheap. So it is what it is. My dad said it is what it is. We got to get it out. So the small wrecker goes with us to the 1-lane underpass. Romeo takes off with the big wrecker. He said, "I'll meet y'all there." So we drive around. We get there with the small wrecker. The guy in the small wrecker says, "I'm not even going to waste my time. Like, it's off in there. We're not going to pull it out." So we wait there for an hour or so. Here comes Romeo in that big wrecker. He pulls up. We don't even call the police to block the roads, hindsight's 2020, probably should have, but we didn't. And this is a main road, Clovercroft Road. Now, granted, it was 25 years ago, so traffic wasn't that bad, but it's still a main road. So Romeo sets that wrecker up in the middle of Clovercroft Road. And the roads are thawed out now. Oh, Romeo, he says, "Hook a cable to the front of the truck and the back of the truck." He tells us where to hook it up on them frames. He said, I'll never forget him looking at us. And he said, "I don't know about all of it, but something's about to come out." And I was like, "Oh boy." I was like, "Well, it is what it is, so we got to get her done." And now we're trying to block traffic, cars coming and going, and a cop pulls up. And he goes, "I'll block the road for y'all to get this thing out." So he blocks the top of the hill. Old Romeo hooks to that truck, and he starts winching it. And you can hear that old 1-ton straining. And so he's winching it. Well, somebody is there videoing it. And this is back 25 years ago. They got the old, tape recorder, VHS tape recorder, and they're videoing it. And we're sitting there watching this massive tractor-trailer wrecker, 3 axles on the back of it, pull this F-250 out. Well, Romeo stops and looks down at the road, and we all stop and look down at the road, and Romeo said, "It's pulling the wrecker across a double yellow line." And I said, "No, it's not." And he said, "I was parked on the other side of that double yellow line when I started. It has pulled this truck across that double yellow line." And ain't no way. So Romeo throws another winch on the other side of the truck to a tree, and just for good measure. And I'm sitting there going, I could just, again, money signs going off in my head. And he continues pulling that Ford truck up out of that bank, and he drags it sideways up a 30-foot embankment up onto the side of the road. When my dad comes over there and says, "Hey, hook that small record up to that F-250 and just take it to Willoughby's. Don't start it." Well, I'm young and dumb. I'm like, "No, I don't want to waste no more money. I'm gonna start this truck and drive it out of here." My dad's like, "No, it's been sitting on its side for a week now. Let's put it behind the little wrecker." And I was like, "No, hell no." So we finally get it up out of the ditch, and I go to start it, and motor's full of oil. I messed the motor up. Lesson learned, right? Started smoking. Oh my God, the smoke bellowed. My dad's like, "I told you not to start it." So the little wrecker comes over there and hooks to it. And old Romeo's over there putting all the winches and cables back on his truck. And we walk over there, and I said, my dad said, "Romeo," he's like, "I'm scared to even ask what this bill's going to cost." Because he done had to drive, 20, 30 miles out of his way because it wouldn't fit underneath the underpass. Old Romeo said, "I ain't never seen nothing drag his truck sideways in the road like that." He said, "That's absolutely crazy." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Give me X amount of dollars." It was nothing. It was peanuts. He's like, "Give me X amount of dollars. We'll call it even." I couldn't pay him fast enough. And I was broke then, but I still couldn't pay him fast enough. It was nothing. And we hooked, and and granted, he had to drive that thing all the way back to Nolensville, all the way back to Triune, and all the way back to Franklin to get to where he was going. And so I couldn't imagine what he spent in fuel to get out there and back, much less the dragging the truck out of the ditch. But the old saying goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And Romeo and Dad were good friends, and I escaped that. And we got that truck. We took that old F-250 to the Willoughby's, and we got it running. But I had done hurt the motor, and it never ran good after that. And I think I ended up, the truck was messed up pretty good before we went off the cliff anyway, the door and the fender. And I don't remember what I did to that truck. Who knows? The Lord owns so many of them. But yeah, like I said, no, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And got that truck out of there, and old Romeo, he saved the day. But and I'm sure old Rowdy probably knows Romeo. And like I said, that was back in old record days, old towing days. And yeah, old Rush Mayfield was there, and rest in peace, that old boy. And but yeah, too lucky, too long, man. Lived a good one, And but that old truck didn't live to see another day after that, I don't think much. So, all right, guys, I know it kind of drug on along, but I appreciate all the likes, follows, shares, and if you was hung with me those days, man, and you remember a story, remind me, because I'm making a list of kind of as I go. I've got about 30 more to go. So I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good one.